Hey guys, welcome to Hard Rooster Labs. Today what I'm talking about is something a little bit different than what I normally do. This is a workflow more than it is a tutorial, and this one involves getting your key bodies ported over to the Unreal Engine so that you can play your old bodies in the new game. You interested? I'm interested. Let's go take a body shot. Before you begin, I recommend you download and use my free startup file. I'll leave a link to it in the description below, as well as a link to a video describing what the startup level is and how to use it. It's loaded with useful tools to help you make car bodies and fixtures. It does a lot of work for you, so save yourself some time and use it. Alright, so first things first, we need to import our FBX file. So let's jump down here, import, FBX, find our file, and import. What you end up with should look a bit like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is correct the scale by hitting Ctrl-A and apply all transforms. You'll notice that the body is currently parented to the armature. So the next thing I'm going to do is select the objects, press the Alt-P hotkey combo, and select Clear and keep transformation. You'll now see that the body is no longer parented to the armature. Next, I'm going to work on the bones a bit. First, I'll change my pivot point to individual origins, and I'll simply scale down the bones to a more reasonable size. Next, I'll come down to the Object Data panel, click on the skeleton icon, and I'll make the bones visible in front of the mesh, and I'll set them so the names are visible. This is a matter of personal preference, so set these view options to suit your own needs. Next, let's position the bones into locations that make a little more sense. We can test the bones in pose mode to see what they do and help us decide where they should live. To further refine our armature setup, we can start locking the transform direction of the bones so they only travel in the direction they're supposed to. If a bone doesn't seem to do anything, that's fine, just leave it there. It may be for another variant. It won't hurt anything if it's not used. If we later find it has no purpose, we can simply delete it. Now let's switch over to the car body and make sure the armature modifier is in place. In this case, Blender knew when we imported the FBX file that the armature modifier was needed, so it auto-magically added it. If you need to add this modifier, it's easy. Just go to the Modifiers tab, find the armature modifier, and add it. Then add the armature to the object field. Make sure you only have one armature and that its name is Armature. Any other name will break the rig once it's imported into UE4. To get ahead of things, I'm going to delete the UV maps. We can now do better UVs in Blender, so we will tackle that later. Now let's remove the loose objects like mirrors and bumpers. To do this, we can simply mouse over them and press the L hotkey. This is most easily done in Face Select mode, which can be activated by pressing the number 3 on the keyboard. We don't need to throw them away, however. We can save them and turn them into fixtures later. To separate them into separate objects, I'll press P and separate by selection. I'll rename them so I know what they are and hide them for now. Let's jump back into the armature now. In edit mode, we need to give our right side bones naming conventions so we can symmetrize them. I'm going to rename them with an R dot in front of each one. Now I will hold down Shift and select them all, right-click and select Symmetrize. I now have bones with an L dot on the opposite side of the vehicle. Back to the car body now, let's jump back into the Modifiers tab and add the Mirror modifier. Place the Mirror modifier above the Armature modifier in the modifier stack. Let's also turn clipping on the Mirror modifier. It's now time to jump into the Vertex Groups box and add the L. Vertex groups that we need to correspond with the appropriate bones we just symmetrized. In this case, we will need to make 3 additional vertex groups. I'll place them next to the appropriate R. groups just to keep it organized. Now we can test our bones and make sure everything is working. Let's hide the armature now and get to work on the body itself. We can fix the name quickly, but let's tab into edit mode and deal with these bounds boxes. They are incomplete, so let's just highlight them and delete what is there. I hope you are using my free startup level, available at the link in the video description below. I also have a video explaining everything that's included in my free startup level, so check that out if you haven't already. Grab the pre-made bounds boxes, or make your own here. Make a copy and rename it appropriately. Now tab into edit mode and scale and resize them as needed. For this model, we can just delete the front bounds as there is no rear engine option. There, that should work. The bounds boxes will already have the correct materials names applied to them if you're using my free startup file. Let's hide the bounds boxes for now. This car body needs some adjustments to deal with the way chassis work in UE4, so let's make any model adjustments we need to make now. This underbody just isn't working for me, so let's just delete it for now. Same with this one. Let's create some new underbodies now. I'm going to highlight the vertices that currently make up the empty space. Press Shift D to duplicate, then press P to separate, and I'll separate by selection. Now I will hide the car body and select my new object. We don't need any sharp edges here, so let's get rid of those. Now I'm going to make note of which vertices are weighted. Now I can start making some extrusions and filling in the empty space. Here I'll make an extrusion out of the leading edge vertices. However, these new vertices will be weighted, but I don't want them to move. So once I have everything looking the way I want, I'll select these weighted vertices and I'll reset the weights accordingly. Now I can grab the armature and test to make sure that the underbody works as expected. I will repeat this process for the rear underbody. Now let's check the face direction using the Shift-N hotkey and correct as needed. I'm quickly going to apply the plastic material here, but we will cover materials in a little bit. In the meantime, let's join the underbodies back to the car. I'll select the underbodies first, then the car, and press Ctrl-J to join them into a single object. Some more body adjustments to clean up this wheel arch. After making mesh adjustments, test the morphs to make sure they still look good. Here we can see some issues at the center of the car. Let's fix those up. Let's fix the materials now. Some of these materials were assigned to the fixtures we are no longer using, so we can just delete those. Now I'll sift through the materials and start making some assignments using the materials provided in the free startup level. Some of the materials, like the windows, are pretty easy. Just select them and assign the windows material. In other cases, we have materials sharing the same material, so we'll want to separate those as needed. Let's make this one a soft top material. Now we can just switch the last of this material over to the window trim. Now here is a little trick. I'm going to move the red paint material so that it's on top of the old blue paint materials. Now if I delete the old blue paint, it will move up the stack to the next available material. In this case, it will be the red paint material. This is a fast way to assign materials. Oops, I don't want to delete that last blue material. We can make that into trim, or two-tone. Let's use trim this time. That wraps up the material conversion. Now let's add some extra materials. We need bonnet for sure, so let's add and assign that now. Let's do some two-tone now. We can hide bits of the mesh to make selecting what we want a bit easier. Oh no, my material is gray. It should be pink. No problem, I'll just scroll down to the material options, I'll find the viewport display color, and use the eyedropper to set it to pink, the color of the material. Let's move on to the lip material. First I want to break the side underbody away from the mesh, so I'll select it in face select mode. I'll go ahead and grab the rest of the underbody and temporarily separate them into a separate object. Now I can grab what I need, make a downward extrusion, level them out, and assign the lip placement material as needed. Make sure the edges where the lip meets the body are sharp. We can now rejoin the underbodies to the car body mesh. You can see now that all my underbodies are separate elements. Make sure you don't accidentally join them back to the car. Now is a good time to create a new collection for your car. Keep everything organized so as we import other models into our scene, we can keep things orderly. I'm going to create a folder inside my folder to keep backups in. I'm going to make a copy of the car before I apply my mirror modifier. Now we can apply the mirror modifier. It's time to do the UV unwrapping. Let's switch over to the UV editing tab and get started. For details on how to do UV unwrapping in Blender, I have a separate video tutorial. I'll put a link to it in the information tab in this video and in the video description below. Don't forget to add the second UV map after you're done. Let's make another copy of our car for the backup. One final check of the morphs. If they require any adjustment, now would be the time. I have another video that shows you how to weight paint your mesh in Blender. I'll leave that in the information tab in this video, and in the video description below. Now we can manually triangulate our mesh. The purpose of this step is to eliminate the V-shaped reflections that go down the body's center lines. You may want to do some manual work on the triangles if you have odd reflections in-game. I've created a script that can automate the flipping of these triangles. I'll leave a link to it in the video description below. I almost forgot, but we need to rig the bounds boxes so the cabin and weight values will change with the morphs. Let's grab the bounds box, add the armature modifier, and assign the armature to it. Now I'll stage some of the bones in pose mode into a morphed position. Now let's select the bounds boxes, enter edit mode, create a bone root vertex group, and assign every vertex a weight of 1.0. Now I'll jump into weight paint mode, add vertex groups that match the names of the corresponding bones, and add weight to the vertices as needed. Again, I've linked a video tutorial about weight painting in the information tab in this video and in the video description below. Now we can test the morphs and observe the bounds boxes moving with the car body and make any needed adjustments or additions. With the triangulation done, it's time to export our model. Make the armature, bounds, and car body visible. Select the armature, then click, drag, select the rest of the objects in the scene. Press F4 and export the FBX file. Ensure you select the appropriate export settings. If you just have the one body, congratulations, you're done! If, however, you have more variants to do, stick around and I'll show you some tricks how to do other variants more quickly now that we have a foundation started. Let's start by hiding the whole folder for our first variant. Hide the armature as well. Import your next variant. Repeat what we did in step 2, but this time, just delete the armature. In the Modifiers tab, assign the Armature modifier to the car body using the existing armature in the scene. We will use this single armature for all variants going forward. We will need to make some adjustments to the vertex group names, same as we did in step 10, so symmetry and mirroring will function. We can test all the bones now and see if they work. Now we will repeat some of the same steps from earlier. Get rid of the UVs, delete the bumpers and mirrors, delete the bounds box, add the mirror modifier, fix anything broken on the center line of the car body, and so on. Let's have some fun now and do the Russian body shop hack job. I'm going to find my backup, and I'm going to highlight some bits off of it, and I'll copy the selections and separate them into separate objects. I'll be able to come back to these time and again to use them to graft onto each additional variant. If you'll recall, we had to make a lot of adjustments to the car body, especially at the front and back, as well as the front and back underbodies. Now we can simply delete portions of the old mesh and join these new pieces in their place. We may have to do some manual joining where the meshes don't perfectly line up. All vertex weights and names will be transferred as well, so all morphs will work. I now realize I could do the same thing with the side, so I'll go through, copy and cut the side out, and glue it to the new body. That takes care of all the underbodies and lip placement materials. From here, it's just a matter of following all the previously established steps as needed for each variant. Well, I hope you got some use out of that video. If you did, like it down below. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when I get a new video up and running. And I will catch you on the next one.